Good evening and welcome to another Linux Saloon. This is a place to talk tech, open source, and Linux. And where Linux is always on tap. So each show will have a talk about a Linux project. Generally, it'll be a distribution, but it could be centered on any desktop environment or application. Anything that is Linux and open source is on the table for discussion. So how is everyone?
Doing great.
Doing good.
Awesome.
Good.
Excellent. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm glad we have Schickel here because we're going to, I would say, pick his brain. We're probably going to, smack his brain around on Pop! OS, and he's going to be our expert on the panel, who's also kind of an insider. So I don't know if this is like insider trading.
I do have it installed on 3 different situations.
Yeah, you don't count, Steve. You don't count. I'm kidding, Steve.
Oh, Vince isn't even here.
I was conjuring up my inner Vince, to basically let you have it. All right, so we're going to be talking about, coming up, we're going to talk about the distro exploration of Pop! OS. We're going to check the menu on what's on the next distro cocktail. We'll go over a news flight, community free pour, and then we'll finish off with a last call. But first, we talk about what we've been doing in Linux. So this last week, I have been setting up and building a server, rack, network, whatever station in my basement. So my network area has been basically a disaster for since I moved. I kind of basically threw it together, slapped stuff together to kind of get, just so I could have everything operational. And I says, well, I'll get to it later when I have time to, refine things. And a few weeks back, I went on vacation, and so we had someone watching the house, and somebody did something and shut off the power to the server, so they lost internet and everything, and I lost access to my home assistant, my remote stuff. Anyway, so I had someone come over and turn it back on, but they were a little bit, how should we say, uncomfortable about the mess of wires and spaghetti rat's nest that it was. Like a couple of there's power strips, plugged into each other into the back of the UPS and all this stuff. So I decided it was time to just clean it all up, put it in a proper server rack, and like clean up all the wires and everything. Now I'm not a sysadmin. I'm not a network guy. I don't do any of those things. So it's not my area of expertise at all. So anyway, I bought a 2-post rack because I figured that's good enough, and it is. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been getting parts in, put in some shells and add things and move stuff around. And I spent way too much on a drawer, a 19-inch wide drawer that fits in there, a 40U high drawer. I don't want to say how much I spent on that because I'm embarrassed. But so about $450 later, I have a very nice network center in my house. So I'm very happy about it. It looks good. It's clean. You're not gonna trip on any wires anymore. And so I'm very excited about that.
Yay.
Good for you.
So now the question is, do I take my server, which is basically just a giant PC case, and put it in a proper rack mount and spend another $100, or do I just leave it as it is and kind of walk away and smile?
Well, if it's working and it's aesthetically pleasing to you and you don't mind it, then leave it the way it is. Why mess with something that's working?
That's a
I'm
good point.
going to be weirdo and say, if there's enough space in the bottom of your rack, just take the server and put it in the bottom of the rack at the very bottom.
Oh, it's there. It's on a shelf.
Yeah.
It's on a shelf in there. So just leave it there next to the UPS. Yeah. Now, I do know that I have exceeded the weight capacity of that shelf by a few pounds. So it is a little, it's not, I'm not going to say it's precarious, but it's a bit precarious.
Well, I've always subscribed to the if it's not broken, fix it until it is.
Oh, okay.
Motto.
I like
that one a lot.
Yeah. That's the motto. Surprisingly, I do too. Sometimes I'm like,
It's fun.
It's like it works, but it might be better if. And then sometimes that turns into a 12-hour fix after I've tried to fix it and make it better, and really actually just made it worse. Thankfully, if it's a Linux problem, I can just snap or roll back and I'm okay. But sometimes there's no snap or roll back in real life, so there is that. So, anybody else have anything else they want to share about their week in Linux or their week in tech or anything exciting? Yes, Schickel.
Oh wait, no. Let Peter go
Okay.
because I like
Okay, Peter, go.
no pressure.
No, I'm just laughing at you putting your hand up so fast. That's all.
So I have been doing a lot of fiddling. I may have been distro hopping. I know I wouldn't do that normally, right? That's not a thing, but
No,
I
never.
did it. No. And I have tried a lot of things. But recently I've been playing around with disk encryption, and I have managed to I have managed to sort of find a way to like reuse encryption. I didn't actually know you could like reuse an encrypted volume to like install other operating systems. So I have like installed OpenSUSE, Ubuntu, and Arch on all on like one encrypted partition. Um, it hasn't broken yet, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So I'm gonna try and write something up about it because it's kind of fun.
Cool.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm curious to know why I can never remember that I'm muted. What I wanted to like to know, when you encrypt something, let's play, because I don't, shame on me, I don't encrypt my drives because it's just another avenue for me to screw something up and lose my data. I'm more concerned about losing my data and never being able to access again because I don't know what I'm doing. So what I do is I use the Plasma vaults for the data that I'm concerned about,
Yes.
because I can move that from disk to disk, and I don't have to worry about, whatever, is in that vault is encrypted. So instead of doing a whole disk encryption, I just do, like, these are my files that I want to make sure are, harder to access. But the rest of the stuff, like I don't really care about. Now, my question is, let's say you start with Pop! OS and you encrypted the drive, let's say your home directory or something, I don't know. And then you move to OpenSUSE and you want to carry that encrypted drive over. What would be the process to decrypt that drive and use it with a different distribution?
Well, OpenSUSE is really awesome in this regard, and I'm not just saying that because I know you like OpenSUSE.
Well,
But-
I mean, what you're saying sounds really cool to me right now. So it doesn't.
Yast is really good about sort of like managing partitions, even especially like BTRFS subvolumes and all that stuff. So when you start the installer and there's an encrypted install there, and a few other installers also do this, OpenSUSE will just basically be like, hey, this is encrypted. Do you want to decrypt it? And it'll just ask you to put in the decryption key. And then from there, you can go to the guided set or the expert setup, the custom one, but you can start with existing partitions.
Okay.
And once you go into that screen, it'll like show you all your volumes, and the unlocked encrypted disk will be in there. So you could do whatever you want with it at that point.
Really?
Yeah,
So-
it's pretty cool.
So whatever encryption scheme Pop uses, or let's just say any distribution that encrypts the drives, OpenSUSE or possibly other distributions know the drive requires something to unlock the drive.
So
Whatever.
far, it's worked. Yeah, it's
Okay.
like it like looks for encrypted drives before it like presents it. It's pretty cool.
That's really interesting. I feel like I should play with that. I've just been all right. So I realize it's been like 12 years since I last tried encrypting a drive, and it failed miserably
wow.
for me. So I've had like that fear of going in the deep end again, I guess, is my thing. So I just
The only reason that I really do it, like on my home machines, I don't, but because my laptop I take out, I'm not really worried about like somebody specifically targeting me, but I figure that if somebody does happen to grab my laptop, like, I can't really like put my browser in a Plasma Vault. So like any of like the sites that I'm signed into, I don't want somebody being able to, tweet as me on Twitter or look at my bank information or anything like that. So that's my main concern, is that like if somebody does happen to swipe my laptop and they manage to get past the login screen, because those aren't really too difficult to get past. I mean, they're decent, but if you have physical access to a device, all bets are off,
right. That makes sense. Oops. Yeah. So I guess I've never. Maybe I really need to play with that again. My thing is, like, if someone takes my laptop from my hands, it's probably going to be my cold dead hands, and at that point, I don't think I'd care.
That's fair. Yeah.
So maybe it won't be cold, quite cold, but dead
Just
hands
like
anyway.
lukewarm.
Yeah.
Boy,
So-
what did I come back to? Talking about people taking stuff out of their dead hands.
Yeah, I'm just saying if somebody, they're going to have to really work hard to take it from me, I guess is what I'm saying. Although I suppose, there's the possibility, however extremely, extremely remote, if you had you're traveling internationally or whatever, and they, there's some, I guess some countries that will, could pry into your things by traveling. I don't travel much anymore, at all. So if I do travel, maybe I'd take something, not my main laptop, I guess. But so that's good. Something to look into. Encryption, whole disk encryption, I guess.
I do
I
have
have
some
something.
bad news about Linux.
Oh, do share.
Right, so there's a little thing going on in China right now called the Olympics, and a lot of people are trying to watch it. And I had a few friends who use Linux also try to access Peacock, the NBC channel, and Peacock is not allowing Linux browsers to access their streams. It's like the problem HBO Max had at the start, which got fixed. But Peacock is not working on Linux browsers. However, I did test my Chromebook, and it worked on the Chromebook fine.
Interesting. Did you try Chrome on Linux to see if that would access Peacock?
I did. I tried Firefox and I tried Chrome. There's a whole bunch of us testing and taking coffee and to help someone. They eventually got access via YouTube TV.
That's interesting. I wonder why that is.
E.g. Sorry.
Some level of encryption or whatever, some different thing that's not
A
supported.
DRM or something. Jason
Yeah.
seemed to perk up when I mentioned it. So
We got excited about the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I heard about the whole Linux that issue with the what do you call that, the Olympics and stuff. I saw it on a some Linux discussion somewhere, and yeah, it's I have nobody knows exactly what's going on from what I've read, but it's it's got to be something to do with the way they're reading something to do with the transmission, I guess, so to speak. They're blocking that, the version of Chrome or browsers in general from Linux, and maybe there's some sort of extension that it reads or something when it's transmitting the data, and they're just like, nope, we don't want that. And I don't understand why. It's but it's they probably didn't encode it properly, and when they were setting everything up, kind of like HBO did, when they had a little snafu there when they did it as well. So it's probably just something in the way they set it up.
Could be. Well, I know that Disney Plus for a while I couldn't access on Linux. I couldn't, but that I think it was cleared up.
I think it was the DRM was set too high, I think, and it wasn't Linux compatible. And I think they lowered it afterwards.
I didn't. Well, they must have lowered it before, or after. I was already using it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've used Disney Plus on Linux on Mint and in Manjaro, and I never had any problems with it.
yeah, I've never had a problem with Disney Plus. It was HBO Max that had the problem.
I didn't test HBO Max. I didn't, obviously Netflix and Amazon Prime and the other one there, Disney. But I haven't had any problems.
That's what I meant. Sorry, it was HBO Max. HBO Max when it launched, the DRM was too high, I think.
I made it funny that Chrome OS is like Schrodinger's cat. It's Linux, but it's also not Linux.
So is it dead in the box?
Or alive, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or just yes to both.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to welcome Donnie. I haven't heard his mic crack yet, so to make sure that I just want to make sure his okay, your volume's good. That's good. That was my way of very slyly doing your mic levels without people knowing that I'm watching. That's what that was for.
Too late.
All right, that's why I'm not a professional. Okay. All right, so think we're going to roll into Pop! OS. I don't know, Steve, if you want to take it away.
Okay, so our distro exploration today is Pop! OS, but we're going to talk about some rules first. So the intent is to talk about the different aspects of the OS and discuss the experience after using it. This discussion that by which only objective and constructive criticism will be a product. Non-objective opinions like this is garbage is not helpful. Rather, if you say, I wish I had this feature, or I really need features that allow me to, you will benefit the conversation. The point is to highlight the positives, but not ignore the lowlights of the project as well. Remember, this is a labor of love for some. Let's not poo-poo it. And let's be respectful of each other and give each other a chance to talk. So, Iris, on to you.
So we had a Telegram straw poll, and it was about the weekly aspiration, what's poppin'? And 19% said Pop! OS is amazing. 38% said Pop! OS is okay. 4% said I am not having a good time with Pop! OS. 8% said I'm not interested in trying Pop! OS. 15% said I don't have time for this exploration. 8% said I'm not interested in doing the explorations in general. And 8% said other, please reply, other give details. The only reply that I got that I remember was I loved it until after I set it up. Shortly after, the super key search feature goes dead, either by the key or by the icon. Both don't work. I reinstalled 3 times trying to find out where it goes awry, but I couldn't figure it out. But it always went dead, and that was another vote. And Eric, you want to take it over? You're muted, Nate.
Maybe I can talk into the mic without it being unmuted again. Eric.
Yeah, sorry guys. I so my adventure with Pop right now is that I installed it. I'm enjoying it, but for some reason it refuses to see my sound card, so I can't use my microphone. So I'm on a phone, and I'm not going to do that reading over my phone. So sorry.
No worries. It's actually, you sound pretty good. So, but I understand it's probably inconvenient and difficult to manage the phone and the reading. So I got it. All right. So go ahead, Steve, if you want to take it away, feel free.
Okay. We can switch it off. So about Pop! OS. Pop! OS is a free and open source Linux distribution based on Ubuntu and featuring a GTK desktop environment known as Cosmic, which is based on GNOME. The distribution is developed by American Linux computer manufacturer System 76. Pop! OS is primarily built to be bundled with the computers built by System 76, but can also be downloaded and installed on most computers. Pop! OS provides full out-of-the-box support for both AMD and NVIDIA GPUs. It is regarded as an easy distribution to set up for gaming, mainly due to its built-in GPU support. Pop! OS provides default disk encryption, streamlined window and workspace management, keyboard shortcuts for navigation, as well as built-in power management profiles. The latest releases also have packages that allow for easy setup for TensorFlow and CUDA. Pop! OS is maintained primarily by System 76, with the release version code hosted in a GitHub repository. Unlike many other Linux distributions, it is not a community-driven, although outside programmers can contribute, view, and modify the source code. They can also build custom ISO images and redistribute them under another name. So the features, Pop! OS primarily uses free software with some proprietary software used for hardware drivers and for Wi-Fi, discrete GPU, and media codecs. It comes with a wide range of default software, including LibreOffice, Firefox, and Geary. Additional software can be downloaded using the package manager, the Pop Shop. Pop! OS uses apt as its package manager and initially did not use snaps or Flatpak, but Flatpak support was added in version 2004 LTS. Software packages are available from the Ubuntu repositories as well as Pop! OS's own repositories. Pop! OS features a customized GNOME shell interface with a Pop! OS theme. There is a GUI toggle in the GNOME system menu for switching between different video modes on dual GPU laptops. There are 3 display modes: hybrid, discrete, and iGPU only. There is a power management package developed from the Intel Clear Linux distribution, and Pop! OS uses Xorg as its display manager with Wayland available optionally, as Ubuntu has done. Wayland lacks support for proprietary device drivers, in particular NVIDIA, while Xorg is supported. To ensure use of NVIDIA proprietary drivers for most performances in GPU switching, Pop! OS uses only Xorg to date. TensorFlow and CUDA-enabled programs can be added by installing packages from the Pop! OS repositories without additional configuration required. It provides a recovery partition that can be used to refresh the system while preserving user files. It can be used only if set up during initial installation. From the 2104 release, Pop! OS included a new GNOME-based desktop environment called Cosmic, an acronym for Computer Operating System Main Interface Components, developed by System 76. It features separate views for workspaces and applications, a dock included by default, and supports both mouse-driven and keyboard-driven workflows. System 76 stated it will be creating a new desktop environment not based on GNOME. This desktop environment will be written in Rust and developed to be similar to the Cosmic desktop used since version 2104. System 76 cites limitations with GNOME extensions, as well as a disagreement with GNOME developers on the desktop experience as reasons to build a new desktop environment. The ISO options are, you can download the 2110 now. There's the NVIDIA driver. Straight up is AMD. They have one set up strictly for NVIDIA, and they have a Raspberry Pi now.
Which is awesome. I love it when I see they like immediate support for the Raspberry Pi. It's such a fun computer to mess with. I don't know, does anybody here have Raspberry Pi besides me? Okay, Shiko, of course.
Not.
Jinda. Steve, you got to get yourself a Raspberry Pi. Eris, I think he's raising his hand saying he has a Raspberry Pi, or maybe a comment, whichever.
No, I have a Pi.
Okay.
I have 2 ad guards.
Oh, nice. This is my my play around with Pi 4. So it's great.
You got a Pi 400.
Yes, that's also a fun one.
Yeah.
So I'm part of that club too. See.
All right.
But I have a Pi Mega on this one right now.
Ooh.
Look at another Pi. I think you got the Flirk case too there, Jason. Yeah, it looks like it. Is that Flirk?
This is the one that comes with the Cana kit.
Okay.
So it's just basically the same exact thing as what you have. It just says Cana kit on it.
Okay. Yeah, I got nothing on the top of mine.
So
As
I mean,
as-
if you look at the front, same thing.
Uh-oh.
All right, so I guess let's move on to the installation process. Obviously, it's different if you install for a Raspberry Pi than for x86. So whatever you installed it on, I didn't do the Raspberry Pi. I ran out of time for the week. But I'd like to know how your installation process went. I know, Eric, if you want to chime in on that now. Obviously, you're having great time with it, so I know that much.
Yeah, the installation was actually not bad. I had to do a custom just because I wanted to keep my dual boot. It does not do like OS Prober and do a grub, custom grub to be able to choose which system to boot at boot time. So you'd have to switch using the EFI manager between the bootloaders. But I'm also just now getting a message about the EFI partition being almost full. So I'm not sure what it did. I need to go in and look at that. So again, I brought that up last week thinking maybe that was going to be a problem, and it does seem as though Pop wants to be the only OS on the disk, from what I can tell, at least so far, at least the way I have it set up. So yeah, but otherwise the installer is very nice. It's very clean. It's very, professional. Yeah.
I have a question for you. So I do notice that Pop! OS doesn't have Secure Boot as an option. You have to disable Secure Boot, at least according to the directions. Is that an issue for you and how you use your machines?
No, because I always have secure boot off anyway.
Okay, all right. Does anybody else have an issue with Secure Boot, like they run Secure Boot on their machines?
No.
Or okay, am I the cheese that stands alone on that one?
None of my systems have secure boot.
Okay, well, I guess I do use Secure Boot, and I have now for 5-ish or so years. So I don't know. I guess I'm the weird one. All right. Anybody else? Any comments on the installation process and how you felt about that? Go ahead,
Peter.
Peter.
Right. So my system is somewhat unique to the way I have it set up. I have a 11-year-old laptop, so it's very legacy. When you talk about secure boot and the modern way of booting, and it doesn't recognize that. It's very legacy. It's very grub. So it's 11 years old, and I have 3 tests and partitions on an external drive connected by an eSATA link. And the good thing with the installer was I could say to the installer, go install Pop! OS on the 3rd partition of the external drive. And it did it. It did install it. However, it did not update the grub menu on my SDA. Because when I rebooted, it was still showing as the previous distro I had in that partition. All I did was on PC Linux OS, my main system on the laptop, I run grub customizer, and that fixed everything. And when I rebooted again, Pop! OS was there on the 3rd partition on the external drive, and it opened up fine. So that was my way around it.
Okay.
So I was going to say, Vince said in the comments that Secure Boot requires a certificate from Microsoft. So you'll probably only see support for it from the large distros.
Okay. And I run
And-
OpenSUSE, so that's probably why.
And I think Donnie wanted to say something. So go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, so I was the opposite of Eric. I was actually used the install Pop! OS, updated the file for the boot menu to be displayed within 5 minutes, and I found an easy tutorial online to actually copy the file for Windows because I have to use Windows on my computer for work. So, and I was able to get Windows displayed on the boot menu. So that worked out pretty good. Installation was very easy. It's Pop! OS, so their installation is good. I just wish they have the option for Btrfs, but it's still good. I don't mind using the ext4, but other than that, it was great.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and I can say I installed it. I've got it on 3 different. Well, I have it on 2 on 1 machine. On my desktop, I have what I set up for the family, and then because I have an icy dock, I also have set up a Pop! OS for my stream setup. So like nothing, like if something happens to the family computer, nothing will mess up with it. And then I have it on my main laptop. The only thing that you have to kind of be careful is if you have an NVIDIA driver or an NVIDIA card, that you make sure that you do use the NVIDIA download, because I made a mistake because I downloaded both of them, one because my laptop doesn't have NVIDIA, and I had burned a USB with the regular AMD, and it stopped in the middle of the process. You wouldn't think it would, that it would just maybe install a generic driver, but it seems to be very specific to NVIDIA or non-NVIDIA. So just watch out for that. Otherwise, 3 instances. I think I did have an error on my icy dock one, but it was easy fix. And one of the great things about Pop that I found out is also the rollback option and the recovery option. That is, it did help on an issue that I had.
Well, the reason I brought up about the secure boot is I wonder if, like, for people who dual boot, like if they still dual boot into Windows, if that's a problem. If you don't have.
I have a number of Drugger OS users. Drugger OS does not support secure boot, and they dual boot. It doesn't seem like it's an issue at all.
Okay.
And I've installed Windows and virtual machines before that don't support secure boot. Doesn't seem to be an issue. Windows 11 will probably complain like crazy, but Windows 10 probably doesn't care.
Yeah, I'm using Windows on this computer and Pop! OS, and does not complain at all.
Yeah. So
I will say though, if you are using BitLocker drive encryption, you have to use secure boot. If you have that going and then you disable secure boot, your computer will not boot, period, because when the Windows NT kernel boots, it will check that. And when it sees that you're also using BitLocker, it just will refuse to boot. It'll throw an error at you. There's something else where like, there's some other issues where like you do not want to disable secure boot until you disable BitLocker first.
in regards to secure boot complaining, by the way, that generally shouldn't matter with other operating systems installed. It's to help prevent modifications of the bootloader for that system. So secure boot essentially will prevent things from, like, it's why, like, if you turn secure boot on after you've already installed, you may not be able to boot into that system because the keys don't match what the operating system has. So it's basically a signing process in a way, but it won't matter for other operating systems because they don't interact with each other.
So kind of like booting my Lineage OS on a cell phone or an Android device, how it kind of barks at you when you first start it up.
Yeah, just
Okay.
about.
Mark, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, so I typically install in either Vultr or DigitalOcean for my test scenarios. And this time I installed in Vultr, and I initially tried the first download, which was the AMD Intel. That didn't work with their hypervisor for some reason. It just ran into issues. I couldn't even boot the live distribution. But I did go and use the AMD NVIDIA, and that worked just fine. And so went through the installation fine, and didn't have issues.
That's good. I like that you test the distributions in a different way that everybody else does, because you give a unique perspective every time on how it works, in your virtual machine craziness that's out there, and I really appreciate that. And I hope
my cloudy desktop.
Yes, your cloudy desktop.
So I also installed it locally on a second drive on a old PC, and it worked fine there too.
Okay. How was the performance on that? Well, actually, we'll get to that later. So, anybody else want to talk about on the installation process? See, I almost got off track. Steve, you can yell at me later for that. Anything other comments? Oh, Jinder, do you have something you want to say? You look like you want to you get the smile on your face that tells me,
I had no issues installing it whatsoever. I went smooth and silk, and it was perfect.
Excellent. I like hearing that. That's great. Rick?
Same for me.
Yep, you did a live stream install, and I know that also Colin, he did actually made a short out of his install process, or part of it anyway, so that was cool.
Yeah. I also
right.
installed a hard drive up here on my testing computer. It went fine.
Excellent.
Fed up and running right now.
Cool. Is that what you're streaming off of right now, or conferencing off of?
I'm
now?
not streaming off of it. But I could stream off if I wanted to, I suppose.
Well, you don't have to switch. We didn't make any craziness for that. All right. Well, excellent. Now, as far as the default application selection, oh, Steve, I just jumped on you.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Used to it. What did everybody think about the default applications? I mean, they have their Pop Shop, which is they were working with, I think they got it from Elementary. I find it a very nice setup. It certainly looks much better than like the Ubuntu store. And I think it actually looks a little bit better than an Elementary store. And the fact that, it has the dev packages and the flat packs, if there is a flat pack for it, for the applications. Did anybody test out some of the applications? I mean, I'm a almost a year user now on Pop, so I really like the Pop Shop. Anybody else?
Personally, I like the
yeah.
Pop Shop. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Colin.
No, that's all right. I think, I've done a fresh install because I've been running Pop OS for 16 months, I think, and So I thought I'd give it a fresh install. So they give you LibreOffice out of the box, and a web browser, Geary mail, and not too much other stuff. I think it's left for the user to decide what they want to install. But there's enough there just to get you going. So that's pretty cool. And yes, the Pop Shop is quite good. And I think they have, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have Flatpak set up out of the box. Because I've done a fresh install, I looked for some applications and all the Flatpaks came up, which is fantastic for new users because all this nonsense that you got to go through to go to the Flat Hub, quick setup, couple of commands in the terminal, we need to get away from that. And I think Pop's done a great job of introducing that. And they introduce a lot of applications for new users where they can just find it in one central location. And I think that's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I totally agree. Here's something that I really like about the Pop Shop. Not to jump on anybody here, but if you look at the Pop Shop, they have like the way they lay it out is very nice. It's very welcoming. It's not, it's not cluttered. And then I like how they have like their pop picks on one side, and then some very common applications that you would likely see for, especially I know Pop. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shickle, but Pop OS kind of targets the maker, the developer world a little bit more. Like that's their target focus. But they do it in such a way, like, okay, Love OpenSUSE, they claim to do that also, but you have to, the barrier of entry is a little bit higher in OpenSUSE because you have to understand a little more in the terminal. And so I'm really pleased by how Pop or System76 makes it so everything's very accessible. And on top of it, right out of the gate, it's a dark theme. And it's a beautiful dark theme.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's a distribution that makes me smile like ear to ear just as soon as it pops up. Pops up.
I see what you did there. Something I really like about the Pop Shop is that they will also package some things that aren't necessarily like in FlatHub or in the Ubuntu repos. I forgot what example I had offhand, but I know I saw a couple of things. Oh, like Alacrity, or I think it's called. I don't know if it's in the Ubuntu repos now, but for a long while it wasn't, and that's the GPU accelerated terminal application. They had actually had that packaged up and available in Pop Shop, which I thought was super cool. And there's a lot of little things like that typically like I would have ended up going and installing from a random deb file somewhere, that they were just like, yeah, we'll just put this here. So I like that.
And they use Eddie instead of like GW, or that works real well for packages. So if you download those,
awesome.
yeah.
I highly recommend if in terms of like installing software, especially things like if any of you do like NVIDIA stuff or 3D rendering stuff, I think the docs for Pop OS are really, really good. So
if I was to have any criticism of the Pop Shop after using Pop OS for such a long time, it seems to take a long time to populate the updates, even though it'll tell you there's a bubble there that says 2 updates. Then you click on to go to those updates, then it'll start searching again, and it seems to take a while with search. And I've noticed that in the Pop Shop over a long period of time. So I don't know if they're working on maybe getting something a bit quicker in that, or that's just the way it works. I don't know. Maybe I'm impatient. I don't know.
You probably are. Oh.
Probably.
It doesn't seem to take that long. I mean, that I really notice. It's nice that when you click on the bubble, it takes you right to it. And this is the simplicity of it. So one thing I mentioned, my son, who, Linux, not an Linux enthusiast, but he'll sit here with his laptop on Windows 11, and then he's got stuff going on here, and then he's got the dual screen pop going and that, and he'll do all the actually he did the update to 2110 from 2004 without even telling me. and not that it's a smooth process when you do it. It can mess up, but he updates the system all the time. I don't have to worry about it like with Grandpa. I don't have to worry about it getting updated.
So I have about the pop shop, since I wanted to say that all the icons for the applications were all populated. Where last week I criticized Solus and their package manager because they didn't have any icons. But it's that brand recognition. It's being able to see the icon for FileZilla and GIMP and those types of things, and where you say, oh yeah, that's an application I've used before, I want to install it. So that I found the Pop Shop had all of those things done well.
Anything else on the applications you might want to bring up? So I want to say also that I'm very pleased to see that Flatpak is already enabled by default. That opens up a whole world of applications. Pretty much anything you need is going to be available to you. Pretty much, not everything, obviously, but I do appreciate that. The more I test out distributions, the more I find I'm really enjoying the Flatpak experience. Although theming sometimes isn't always the greatest, but like the theming integration. But I do sincerely appreciate the ease of getting applications into your system, and it really opens up a world of flexibility for the user, as I see it. So it's a wonderful thing. It's great for the user, and diminishes the need for the AUR. Okay, anybody else have anything on that? If not, I'd like to talk about the tiling feature. Okay, I see a lot of north and south. So, Schickel, go ahead and start the conversation off on the tiling.
Oh boy, have you ever just wanted to have windows next to your windows? Because so, it still blows me away every time I use this, because I don't daily drive Pop OS, but every time I try it, yeah, it has an auto tiling feature. How many of you use tiling window managers? I got 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4, a decent amount. Cool. So though I can speak, I know how to talk. So PopShell has a really cool feature which will automatically tile windows next to each other on your desktop. So it's kind of mixing the worlds between desktop environment and window manager, tiling window manager together. And there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts that move things around. Did everybody try it? Who tried it in this selection?
I've been using it on and off.
Okay. How does it work for you? Like, do you like the tiling?
Can I jump in?
Do it, please.
Just real quick. So I've since I installed Pop OS, I've pretty much been using the tiling feature exclusively, just because I'm used to tiling window managers. And you're right, it's amazing that they have that option, and they developed that option pretty much from scratch, I believe. There are a couple of things that I noticed. It's not quite as fluid as I would normally like to see in a tiling window manager, but it works. And it also allows, and this is a big advantage, it allows you to use your mouse to move things around, which is something that a lot of tiling window managers don't. I did notice, though, that when moving things around with the keyboard, sometimes it didn't quite work as I expected. So if I moved a window, say if I have two windows side by side and I wanted to swap them around, it would move one window and then overlap the one that was already there, and it wouldn't automatically sort of rearrange them. So that was one thing that I found didn't quite work as I expected. I'm not quite sure what was with that. But then if I use the mouse and drag the windows around, that worked really well. I just really like not having to think about where to put my windows when they open. I think that's just me maybe being lazy. And with that, I think it's also important to remember that tiling pretty much also requires you to use workspaces. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to have a good time. But that's been my experience. I'm happy to hear what other people have to say about it.
Go ahead, Donnie.
So I also use, when I use Pop! OS, I use it only with tiling, and I experienced the same experience that Vince had, but still, it's great. Works. Their launcher is great. The tiling is just, I mean, for floating window for being on GNOME and the way it works, I think it works very, very good and very fluent. So,
Anybody else on the tiling? We saw a lot of excitement on the tiling.
Yeah. I tiled a lot, so I use Awesome Window Manager on my other desk laptop over here. And so I'm used to tiling window managers too. But yeah, it's so cool. I think it's about the only distro I know that builds it in like that. I mean, you can get on KDE, you can get a tiling window thing going, but it's not as good, not as smooth and all that kind of stuff. Overlaps windows sometimes, things like that. But yeah, I really like the tiling window manager aspect of it. It's one of the cool things that caused me to install it, use for daily driver for a while.
It
looks like we have someone special in the room.
It looks like it. Jeremy Stoller? He's Solar. He's a developer for Pop, is he not?
Yes, he is.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Glad to have you in the chat. I don't worry, we're not going to be poo-pooing on Pop! OS. It's too good for that. And
Not at all.
And it's also against the rules. Feel free.
So I did try the tiling window manager feature in the last version of Pop! OS. I feel like it needs to be a little bit more obvious or easier on how to enable the feature. I do like it. It's just I had to dig to figure out how to enable it. But once I did enable it, it's not actually hard to do. It's literally a keyboard shortcut. It's just figuring out how to do it that got me.
Did anyone here try stacking? So
Oh yeah, when you put one window over another and you got the tabs.
Yeah, and it turns them into like tabbed.
Oh, that's what you mean.
I really liked that. I didn't know it was a thing, and then one of the group members, Tyler, actually like showed it to me, and it has totally changed like my editing workflow. Now I have like Audacity and Kdenlive stacked on each other. Because I don't feel like I need to switch like a whole workspace to go between them. I need to just flip quickly to Audacity, change whatever audio thing it is, export it real quick, and then go right back to Kdenlive. So that was super handy for me. I think that's a cool feature. And I also really, really like the outlines that you could put on the windows. Like you could change the color, I think, but it helps make it obvious which window is focused. Without that, I would honestly have no idea what I'm doing. So I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah, speaking of the outline, the only problem is if you change your theme to rounded corners, then the outline does not respect the rounded corners.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I think I know why too. Because I think the theme is just the visible part, but like the actual window itself is still there. That's probably what it is. That's interesting.
I found that with streaming, because I was trying to set up the Tally Manager to keep everything kind of in one spot and all that. But as far as window capture, so Zoom, I had which is nice. I don't know if you can do this in other Tally Managers. You have a floating window on top. So like Zoom window, I would able to let it float on top. Otherwise, the capture in OBS is not right. I don't know if everybody, I know not everybody here's a streamer, but If you've ever noticed that, you know, Alan, yes.
I think that's kind of handy because they actually have like I think a default list of windows that are floating and not tiled.
Mhm.
So for a lot of people that use Steam, you probably know when you first start it up, there's that like little window that pops up and it's like updating Steam, doing this, and that. It would be like super annoying if you opened that and it reshuffled all of your windows just for that little update prompt. So it's kind of cool that they were like kind enough to not like when I saw that they added that to the list, I was like,
Yeah,
cool.
and then you can add any window you need to that list too.
Yeah.
As an aside, Shikul, you mentioned Tyler. I think you mentioned once in the Telegram that Pop Shell, which is the tiling feature, is actually also available in other distros. I think it's in a few. I'm looking at the GitHub now. It says Fedora, Gentoo, OpenSUSE, and Arch. So if any of you out there actually aren't on Pop but still want to try the Pop Shell, go ahead and try and install it.
Yeah, I've used it on Fedora a bit, and I can say that it's really well done. Like it's, I think Carl George is the person that packages that up for Fedora. But yeah, super huge props to everybody who packages extensions up and apps up for other distros, because it's a really cool feature, and you know we all have our like preferred distros and really cool stuff.
Yeah, I tried it on Fedora. The only thing I couldn't get to work on Fedora is the launcher, because it comes with the pop shell. But
I haven't tried that. I should.
Yeah, the launcher did not work for me.
I actually wanted to segue into that and find out. To me, so I use ULauncher normally on any desktop, and I'm so used to having a launcher utility. So the fact that they chose to spend time building one, I think is pretty interesting, especially from a workflow perspective, because to me, that's just a really fast way to get to where you need to be. You know, if it's a window that's not open, then it's going to launch the application. If it is, it'll switch to the window. There's lots of logic and conveniences built into launcher. Did anyone spend any time with that? Or I know if, you know, people have been using Pop, I know the launcher, some of this stuff is fairly new. I mean, when you say you've been using Pop for quite a while was just essentially Ubuntu with some of their theming and some of the utilities. This Cosmic Desktop is a relatively new thing, and I think the launcher is part of that as well. So I really want to spend more time with Pop. I've enjoyed, installed it today, did a little extreme distro hopping, and I'm paying for it right now because my external USB audio device for my microphone, for whatever reason, isn't working. It's happened on another install as well, another distro, and I'm thinking maybe it's a kernel thing. This is using 5.16. I want to maybe try to get up to 5.17 or maybe even drop back to 5.13 and just see if that's what's going on. Anyway, one of the things definitely for me, besides the tiling, which I'm definitely interested in trying, is the launcher, having it built in. Has anyone really focused on that? Did they use it, like it? Any commentary on it?
I know I don't use it. I prefer like show applications. The one thing I have a problem with the launcher, like if I want a certain application, I start typing it, it's like the fifth one down, and then you got to hit number 5 or arrow down to it. Whereas if I'm using all applications, right, you know, I just hit where I got to set up the window key, brings up all applications, and I could just like, I have a YouTube a window, you know, from PWA from, you know, Chrome. I hit Y and YouTube's the first thing that pops up, and I hit enter. I'm there. That's what I like about that. So I'm not really sure why I would want to use something like ULauncher or the launcher.
So you're saying that then it doesn't. So ULauncher and other launchers, the good ones at least, will remember frequency of an application being opened. And so if you open YouTube or something by name often, then the first few keystrokes should be looking at recent apps first. You know, they should be weighted higher than the rest of the apps on the system. So are you saying that Pop, it doesn't look like it does ever?
Maybe I don't use it enough to do it, but you know, it's like when I would, it's like, okay, it's like the second one down, the third one down. And I know it's probably great for if you're looking for specific files, because then you can find it that way. you know, but that's not how I kind of, I usually go for the application, and I just reset my super key to be the all applications to find it that way.
Yeah, what I noticed, the launcher actually displays the open windows that you have, and you can switch between them with control 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever windows you have. So it gives you a keyboard shortcut next to the name of the window that is open.
I love that. I was using that a lot.
I know, it's great.
Okay, well, maybe we can segue into a little bit of what, you know, what we found difficult. What areas did you find difficult, if any, with POP?
One of the things that I found was the wallpaper didn't change. I would click on it and it wouldn't do anything. It would change in the other setting. What was it called? The workspaces. It would change there, but it wouldn't change on the desktop. If I logged in and logged back out, it would change. So
I've never seen that, ever had that problem on all three
I went
desktops.
online and I asked around, and somebody said that does happen every once in a while.
Were you using a virtual machine with that?
Yeah, VirtualBox.
I tried doing it right now with my own install, and I can't change the wallpaper either. It will change in the workspaces though, but it will not change in the desktop.
You might want to try adjusting your video driver to something else. Sometimes Pop! OS has a big issue with that.
I'm using the NVIDIA, not the proprietary drivers, the other ones. I forget what it's called.
Okay.
Nouveau,
that one.
I actually was talking about going into this, the settings of VirtualBox and changing your video code in there to something else.
Yeah, you got VBox SVGA and the VM SVGA and all that. If you try changing those, it might give a different result.
Okay.
Mine's actually on hardware though.
Oh, yours on hardware. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I could
So
just
what-
go back. Sorry, if I could just go back to the launch, I just missed. I was trying to get myself
Okay.
in between there. If you type question mark in the launcher, it gives you quite a number of options, which are quite cool. So if you want to try that, check it out.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dale, we haven't heard from you at all. I don't know if you had something you wanted to share. I want to make sure you get an opportunity to say a thing or three or four or whatever you feel comfortable with.
All right. Well, I'm on mobile data, so if my video or audio gets garbled, just let me know.
No worries.
I don't know. I know what you've discussed in the past, 20 months since I've been on, but so I don't want to rehash a lot of stuff. But I've been using Pop! OS. Let's see, I bought my System 76 Penguin last March, so it's been about 11 months. And a month after, I replaced Mint Cinnamon out of no fault of it. I liked Pop! OS was having some NVIDIA weird video issues on Mint, and I installed the ISO on my desktop. And I have to say, for a computer that's using NVIDIA, it was just like that. My monitor is not a standard resolution. It's, I'm trying to remember what it is. I think it's 5120 by 1440 at 120 hertz is what it's native. And I always have trouble hopping because the Nouveau never wants to go above 3840. And et cetera, et cetera. And I was impressed. I mean, booted up the installer, went through the installer, it rebooted, created my user account, logged in. I was at the native resolution, just like that. Didn't have to change a thing. Didn't have to change my refresh or anything. So I was pretty happy with that. And you had mentioned the U launcher, their version of the U launcher that Donnie had already mentioned. The one thing I like is when I press the super key, if I don't type in a search, it will give you all of your running applications and the control number to switch to them. which I think is a nice feature. It's a little bit different of a workflow than doing the regular Alt Tab and cycling through them. But I really like it. It's works well, and obviously on the System 76 laptop, it works well. But I'll let you get on with your itinerary here.
Oh, no worries.
Well, that's actually one great feature about Pop! OS is that they have it set up directly to work well with the NVIDIA drivers. So that's what I really like about that. It really worked well when I had my gaming laptop last year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Dale, you must be on the same monitor plan as Schickel, because I guess he has like an ultra wide, because what says 5,000 something pixels wide.
That
is that what you said?
is super ultra wide quad
Yeah.
HD, which is amazing. That is so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My issue.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dale.
No, sorry. Yeah, that's why I told you. Sometimes on these mobile data connections, I lag behind everybody else. I'm sorry, because I do a Zoom call with some friends whenever I can because of my work schedule driving on Sunday, and sometimes I just have to disconnect or turn off my video because it gets so laggy. So I apologize.
No worries.
But my issue was I had used dual monitors for like 10 years, all the way from when we had CRTs. I think I had like dual 17s, dual 19 CRTs. Then I got the 22-inch flat screens, the 24-inch flat screens, the 27-inch flat screens. And I had a bezel right here. And it was like, finally, a friend of mine, he's a huge gamer. I think he's got like 400, 500 hours in The Witcher and pretty much any other game. I mean, I don't know how he does it when he works 12 hours a day, but anyway, probably less sleep.
Yeah, probably.
He said, dude, you got to check out this monitor. AOC's got this monitor. It was, really good price. And he said, it's 51 or whatever. And he said, it's the exact same as your two 27s, but in one monitor. And I'm like,
yep.
And that's the only reason why I got it. And the only problem was getting it into my car. Yeah, Micro Center people, they're like, this was like May, June, and they're like out in the parking lot, and we're like, well, gotta take this part of the box off. Gotta take this part of the box off. Okay, we're going to take it out of the box. Okay, well, we gotta put it this way. Yeah. It was pretty much 40 miles of not seeing my rearview mirror, which they said, are you okay with that? I go, I'm a truck driver. I don't have a rearview mirror. I got a mirror there. I got a mirror there. I got a mirror there. I got a mirror there and a mirror below that. So I'm good. Only problem is trying to get it out of my car again without scratching the screen. So yeah, I guess they call that the first world problems. But really, that's really the only reason why I got it is because of having bezels for 10 years. My friend's like, well, do triple monitor. And I'm like,
yep.
I don't have room for triple monitors. And so that's pretty much my tale of woe.
Yeah,
but
my brother has one of those ginormous screens. I looked at it and I was like, nah, I'll stick with my quad setup. I like having individual monitors. It's because with his, like I was watching him, move screens around, or windows inside of it. You can only do so much with you can half his games don't even go full screen because of the way how big the screen is and all that stuff. So I was like, no, I'll stick with my. At one point in time, I had 6 monitors right in front of me, and I brought it down to 4 because it's I got a new desk and whatnot. But yeah, I'm not into the whole ginormous curved screens.
Yeah,
personally.
like VLC, you have to go in, and I don't have that configuration. I can't share it because I don't have it on my laptop here. But there is a way you can go in and set a default full screen resolution for VLC so that when you do hit the full screen, it'll come up in that size. But a friend of mine told me about that because he games on his 32 and then he'll have a 24 next to him. Or I think I gave him, that's what it was. When I got my monitor, I gave him one of my 27s. So he actually has that. And sometimes he'll use his 55-inch TV. But anyways, he's the one that told me about this because he found that out because when he was doing something on his television, you can just imagine a 55-inch television, full screen, is huge. So that's one of the problems with the ultra wide is doing something like that. But one thing I know that Chickle has talked about, and I'm not sure if it was on here or if it was on any of the other podcasts that he's on, is the workflow of not having the system tray and a default GNOME installation where you don't have the notifier. And the thing is, when you've got 5120 by 1440, you can have nice size windows open on your entire monitor and not need notifications because they're all in front of your face. So that's how I pretty much work with my computer, because that was a challenge I had with my friend Josh Hawk, who's on the Midcast podcast, and he's like, I bet you don't even need that. And I'm like, so he challenged me. He's like, I bet you can go a week without using the thing on Pop. I'm like, okay. So I made all of my windows, across there. And I'll tell you what, I can see how the GNOME workflow works like that, where you don't need notifications.
Okay, well, let's since we're talking kind of about monitors, I think Eric wanted to bring up about the hybrid graphics drivers that are set up out of the box with Pop and how it looks on those monitors.
Right. Yeah, I just was going to say, I've brought this up before, the difference between, what a distribution brings to the table versus a desktop environment, and how, some distros will add themes and do different little things. One of the things that always surprises me is that distros don't seem to put much stock into the experience that laptop users have, which I'd have to think that by now the wide majority of people are using laptops over desktops. I mean, sure, yes, there are certainly gaming desktops and stuff like that, but for the most part, anyway. This is one of the few distributions where, if I downloaded the NVIDIA version of the ISO, and whenever I install, I go to the power menu. I can pick between 4 different graphics modes, and I can also pick the CPU mode as well, whether it's balanced, battery life, or high performance. And the fact that stuff is just built in and enabled by default. Now, of course, System 76 being a hardware manufacturer, they would focus on that type of experience, but it is truly one of the few distros I've ever had that just worked perfectly as is with no extra effort on my part.
Back when I had my gaming laptop at about a year ago, before Friday the lightning storm, which kind of sucked, but that always was a big issue, was the NVIDIA drivers until I installed Pop OS, and I used that until it blew, and I never ever had an issue with it.
On the power management side of things, I think I've heard you, Steve, talk about how Pop OS seems to improve your power management. It might have been just me subjectively noticing this, but I think it does improve my laptop battery life. And me being, mostly a laptop user, I'm not quite sure if they've, and I don't have any metrics to prove this. I haven't actually gone and measured it objectively, but I think that it seems to manage my laptop battery better than when I use Arch on it.
Yeah, I know like I've mentioned, like during the streams and that, that when I have all OBS and Zoom and all that open and that, when I was doing it on Peppermint and, with light with RAM and all that, but it didn't do nothing for power management. I tried TLP, but then it turns out, you have to go in and do a bunch of other settings. And then I noticed a big difference once I started doing more on Pop of how things didn't rev up so much. And that's nice. But I think, Jeremy, if you're still out in the chat, they just, I think, released, they did an update. If anybody updated and you had to restart, it's the first time I've seen it. You have to restart your system after this update. And I think they did a new power management thing. I have noticed on my desktop, it takes 1 minute and 8 seconds plus to get to boot. I ran system analyze blame, and it turns out UPower is taking, actually it's more than a minute, more than 1.5 minutes for my desktop to boot. And UPower is taking up like a 1.8 minutes in that boot process. So I on my laptop, I don't have that, but on my desktop, I do. And I don't know if that's because of what with the NVIDIA drivers or whatever, or with NVIDIA and that. It takes, my son thought there was something wrong. He was, I think something's wrong with the desktop, Dad. But it took a long time to come to the long on screen. And I've never seen that happen since I've been on Pop.
There could be two different problems with that. It could be just your standard NVIDIA card. And if that is indeed the problem, just go into systemd and just disable UPower.
Okay.
So I had found using remote desktop XRDP, I wasn't able to change the resolution within POP, but when you use a remote desktop client, you can set the resolution a little bit higher, in the remote client, and Pop OS does support that. On the desktop, I still had issues where I couldn't change resolutions, and it's an older NVIDIA GeForce, but yeah, I had resolution switching challenges, but it just works. It's okay.
I didn't try it on my main machine that I use, my main laptop, I should say. I kind of wish I would have, but I don't want to mess something up because I'm good at messing things up. But I'm interested in seeing how it compares the POP defaults compared to the OpenSUSE defaults, because I have an HP EliteBook, and I get about 8-ish hours out of it doing just like, as long as I'm not doing like a lot of multimedia stuff, but just like regular like office type work or whatever. But I'm wondering like how it would compare to Pop OS. It seems like what I read online is that Pop does a really good job of power management on laptops. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how it would compare. That would be a fun comparison, like to put all the laptops side, like put a laptop and compare different distributions side by side. I'm sure different laptops would perform differently with different distributions. Like as far as like a newer one might do better with, X, Y, or Z distribution. But I think it'd be an interesting study.
The desktop environment plays a role because more of GNOME is a little more resource heavy. It may hold, it might drain a little more. Just to
that's
wonder
a good point.
about that.
I do feel like Pop has done something to make it feel lighter though. Like it doesn't feel like GNOME in the sense that GNOME, I don't know, just feels a little bit heavier. But it doesn't feel like Pop GNOME is heavy, if that makes any sense.
No, I agree with you. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's just so nice. I just I talk about when I was in Peppermint and I kept changing my desktop and my panels and all that. And way in the beginning, I couldn't get into GNOME, and my workflow ended up being just like GNOME. So when I moved into Pop, or I tried Ubuntu first, and then I moved into Pop, it was just like being home. I really haven't changed them. I had a extra extension here and there, but not really much, and it just feels nice. So
Did anyone get any visual stutters when you're kind of going through different desktop or application switching from like the overview layout or any of those things?
None at all.
For the workspaces, no.
Okay.
Donnie, I think you want to say something?
Yeah, so I installed it on my laptop and my desktop. On my laptop, I had high DPI issues that will not save. So I had to switch my resolution to 1920 by 1080 and save it for it to work. On my desktop, I did have mouse lagging and switching, but I think that's not a Pop! OS issue. I think my issue started with that with kernel 514. And I seem to be having that issue on my desktop with any distro I install. So, but yeah, high DPI was frustrating at first.
So I usually don't try Pop because I'm on BIOS, and Pop OS takes over the master boot record, and then I have to cancel with that. So usually I don't try it because of that. I wish the installer would have an option for you to not set up grub or not install grub, possibly maybe install it to the same partition. As far as the tiling, I tried tiling Zoom, Firefox, the Zoom window, and Telegram with the automatic tiling, and it wouldn't work. I don't know. It wouldn't make them small enough. Maybe I don't know if there's a limit to how small they are. I'm only using 1080p, so I don't know if that's an issue. I'm also have the dock showing, so that makes the window smaller.
There are limits to how small windows can be. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's actually like an issue that I've always had with GNOME, because with GNOME there's no quarter tiling. Like I every other DE pretty much, like Mate, XFCE, Plasma has quarter tiling, and that's one thing I always miss about GNOME. When I'm using GNOME, I can't do quarter tiling. But overall, I feel that Pop! OS really does feel very different from GNOME, even though it is based on GNOME. Everything seems very different in some ways. Like you don't have the same where you put your applications and launch them, and the tiling, yeah, that's very different from everything else. And I think the way they've integrated everything cohesively, it makes it feel very different from GNOME or Ubuntu, even though it's based on both.
Well, as far as your problem with system D boot, it's not grub. And system D boot always defaults to taking over the master boot record. That's just the way it works.
If
I've
he's
never
using
found
BIOS,
any,
it'll be grub.
way not to have system D boot take
I'm-
over the master boot
I'm
record.
using BIOS, so it uses grub.
Okay, then
System D.
maybe I'm kind of out of date on my information, but last I knew, I thought it was system D boot.
System deboot only supports UEFI, so therefore they have to use grub on BIOS. They don't really have a choice. Well, they kind of do have a choice. There are other bootloaders, but out there that are actually either A, usable, B, well known, and C, people actually know how to use, your de facto is grub. And grub supports BIOS, system deboot does not. So
Oh, I kind of forgot about that.
I
it's
agree.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so Jeremy Stoller says we could use Lilo and put the funny face after that with the tongue sticking out. Lilo, that takes me back about 15, 18 years, I think. Anyone here use Lilo or Lilo, Linux loader? I think it's what it was. Yeah, that was.
You still
It
have a
worked
little
fine.
option with Puppy, I think. You still give
Oh,
you
do
a
you?
little, yeah.
quick
Lilo
aside, I installed
And
Slackware
Blacklist still
15.
uses Lilo
Yep,
as well.
and it's using Lilo.
I
Okay.
was just going to say that.
We should go back to Lilo. I agree, Jeremy. All right, let's try and make that happen. I guess. Awesome. All right, so I think we've kind of gone over the areas we found difficult, or whatever. Any other thoughts about Pop! OS that we'd like to maybe say, like that maybe didn't fit in anything else that we've talked about? We're nearing the end of our Pop! OS discussion here.
I noticed there was sorry, you go ahead, Cole.
Okay. I noticed that I appreciate in the settings manager, they've got a category called desktop, which gives the user a lot of options in the desktop area. So that is a really good addition to the settings for the GNOME or Pop desktop. It just gives you those little bits and pieces that you can refine the look of your desktop with. So that I find that very handy.
I second that. Yeah, it's all of the things that most people find missing from GNOME, right? They've added back a tray, they've added back, a launcher, and having those options available. Like Ubuntu uses their dock, but they've only exposed a few different options, whereas this goes a little further. And I found the mix to be really good. I was able to move it over to the left, make it hide itself automatically, not be the full width. There's lots of options there to really, customize it the way you'd like it to be.
Probably the only thing that I've noticed, like with the dock, I normally don't use it, but I started giving it a try again, is when you do have it in hidden, a lot of times it's not responsive to the mouse arrow being brought down to where it would normally pop up if you were using Plank or something like that. It's not always responsive as quickly as I would maybe like.
I was going to say, I really like how they give you the option to show or hide the minimize and maximize buttons. Like they just make it really easy. So as much as I love how Plasma, like you can just literally customize everything, like they give you all the little, levers to pull. I like how Pop! OS makes it really simple. Do you want this? Yes or no? This? Yes or no? And just make it very nice, very clean. There's no faffing about. You get what you need, and then it's right there. And also just little simple things too, like where do you want your date positioned? The set left, center, right, or whatever. I think that the little touches like that, I think they really focus on that simple yet very customizable user experience. And I'm going to say again, a dark theme by default is that's great. That is so beautiful.
I find it for a GNOME desktop, it has a great middle ground. It's not overcomplicated and it's not too simple. It's just got the options that people need to just to customize the desktop, including the tiling windows, which I sort of tried using, but trying to remember key combinations, forget it for me. But I can see that it's handy to have there. So they have a really good middle ground in Pop! OS, I believe.
I think we forgot to mention their new menu launcher. So not like the U launcher, as they got away from the GNOME menu launcher with the full screen. And now they're just using like it's centered in the screen, which actually looks very good. It's very nice.
I like it. And it has when you bring it up, it has at the bottom the home office system. It has more folders that you can get to, which I don't think were there in the full screen before.
Who was that? No, yeah, it's great. The new one.
Also, the launcher has the ability to go straight to. I'm talking about the launcher now, not the application menu, but has the ability to go straight to different sections of the settings, which is pretty cool. Actually, you can go to most any setting if you know what the name of it is. Type it in, and it'll take you right there.
Yeah, I have to admit that overview that they have that they've changed from GNOME, where you don't have all the windows zoom out. To me, that was a bit confusing to start with, I must admit. Just took me a little while to get used to that. I'm back on GNOME now, just standard GNOME. I still like the overview of the windows, but the Pop! OS one just seems to sort of just have it all compacted a little bit more. So I sort of like both now, to be honest.
I'm going to say I really appreciate how Pop! OS kind of takes the messiness of the GNOME settings, because they have like, you know, the GNOME tweaks, then you have the other GNOME settings, then some other GNOME settings someplace else. But I like how they combined it all into a very nice, you know, a one-stop shop, which I think makes Pop! OS stand apart from the other GNOME. But I guess that's going to be a Cosmic here pretty soon. So that's something to look forward to. Oh, I'm very excited about this. I'm going to see what they do with all that. It's very exciting.
Interesting you say. Sorry, Steve. Go on.
No, I just said, yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, talking about the one-stop shop, yeah, they have also a firmware category in the settings as well, plus the OS upgrade and recovery, which I've used 3 times and was pretty much flawless since 20.04 right through to 21.10. I had some regressions with Bluetooth and some odd starting and shutdown problems, but that's not a Pop! OS issue, because I'm having the same thing on Arch with GNOME as well. So I'd have to think it's something to do with the kernel, I believe. But yeah, the one-stop shop there, they've got quite a few things to go through in the settings, and it's great to see everything sort of just put into one spot. I think that's very handy.
All right, so let's go into why. If, let's say, you're stuck on an elevator with a perfect stranger, and they ask you, what Linux distribution should I try? Oh no, they ask you, why should I try Pop! OS? What are some of those reasons that you would say? And I'll kick that off. I'll give my example. So I would say, why should you try Pop! OS? Pop! OS has a beautiful dark theme desktop. Everything works very smooth, and they've taken into account various users' needs in doing so. Because we're all going to have that conversation in an elevator with a stranger about a Linux distribution. So,
At least once a
weird,
week.
as weird as that is, as weird as that would be, stuck in an elevator, having conversations about Linux.
It's happening.
Nate, I would tell them that they could succeed where Linux text tips failed.
Okay.
I would actually say that Pop! OS actually is a very user-friendly distro, easy to install, and has everything available to a new user that's not overly complicated. So you'd probably find it very easy to find your way around the operating system, and also how to install your applications with a minimum of fuss.
Yeah, because as an example, like when I set up for my son and my wife, I did it Windows, you know, I put in a dock that was before the Cosmic, and had it set up like that. And then once my son did the update to 21.10, it changed everything around, and he was flying in it in no time. It didn't. I mean, I'm sure it looked a little bit different from him, but he's like, oh, here, and he didn't even ask me for help, So that's how I believe user friendly it is.
I would say that it builds on a familiar base for a lot of people, and is adding new functionality to the otherwise standard desktop experience. And they also are approaching it from a hardware manufacturer's perspective. So they're really taking into account what type of machine it's running on, and making it much easier. And to your point about being easier to install, expecting the person to choose ahead of time whether they're using NVIDIA graphics, or that might make it a little more difficult for the user to kind of pick up front. But once they've made the right choice, the experience is much more tailored to their hardware.
I would say it's so easy, even a caveman can install it.
Is that a reference to Gecko Linux?
It might be.
So so Pop! OS, they have their own desktop in a way like Linux Mint, like Elementary. They give you the Pop Shop, so that's different from every other distro. I guess it's similar to Elementary, but not the same. They also give you Flatpak support. They give you the NVIDIA graphics out of the box, and like you said, it's very cohesive. The font's different. It's not like your default font. The wallpapers, everything looks cohesive to the system itself.
Could you say possibly that Pop! OS is more of a product and not so much of a distribution? I know I'm probably like some nuance in that, but to me it doesn't feel like just a Linux distribution, a collection of applications, but this feels like a tailored experience as opposed to just, like a sandbox.
I'd say that it is a product because it comes with your System 76 machines. So there is that level that I would say that you'd have to reach to be able to sell it together, I think. So I think you're spot on there.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just really good. It's a very good. I'm glad we tried it because I've had that itch for a while, and it definitely was worth the scratch for sure. The juice was worth the squeeze. Maybe another way of saying that. So, anybody else have anything they want to say about Pop! OS before we get on to next week's distro exploration?
I guess maybe one question: who's going to keep it?
I know Steve will.
Are we going to do our vote rating thing?
Oh, that's right. So we have. Why is that not in my Where did that go? All right, so we're going to have go around the horn here, and say whether you think it's top shelf, if it's a craft, like a specialty drink mix, or a well, like something like a well drink. Where would you place Pop? Top shelf, specialty, or whatever. Now, mind you, these are not, one is not better than the other because you are in the mood of something specific. So the ranking here is completely useless. It's just to have fun and to tie it into the whole Linux Saloon thing. So, Eric, where would you place Pop! OS?
I think I would place it pretty high, honestly. My phone is doing something really weird right now. I'm sorry. Yeah, I would place it up pretty high, actually. And I have to be honest, I did wait until today to start looking at it because my previous mental image of Pop was that it was a more or less a window dressing, right? It was taking something that existed, making it look a little bit different and adding, a couple of nice things to it, but more or less it was just essentially, a derivative. Now I'm feeling like every successive release becomes more and more their own. And I'm definitely excited to see how they continue on with the Cosmic Desktop and some of the things that I keep reading about. The scheduler they're working on to make the desktop more responsive. They're really looking at the guts and nuts and bolts of the distribution itself and making it something unique and their own. So, yeah.
Okay. Eris, what would you say? Where would you place it? Would you say it's a top shelf?
I second what Eric said. When Pop! OS started, it was very similar to GNOME, and it almost seemed like there wasn't really a purpose to it, and I don't think there was enough there to justify not just using GNOME, but now there's a lot of differences. It's a different experience, and yes, I think it is a top shelf.
All right, that's 2 for top shelf. Peter.
I'm going to pass because I do not understand the analogy.
It doesn't. Okay. So here, it literally doesn't matter. So the idea is this is a Linux Saloon, and
okay. Now
yeah,
get it
so
out.
so like we're saying, we're just kind of giving it like a how you feel about it. Is this something? Does it feel
I would have it
expensive
under
to
the
you?
counter and bring out in special occasions.
Okay. So we'll call it an under the counter. We'll call it a specialty menu, the hidden
There you go,
menu.
there you
That's good. All right.
Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, that's all. It's a silly, nonsensical, fun way to kind of give your last opinion on the distribution. So Jason, how would you rank this?
Well, I didn't do any of the testing, so I don't have a rank for it.
Oh, okay.
Kick him out.
That's okay. That's it.
Hey
We'll
now,
leave it
hey
at-
now.
You take your cats and get out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that will take a while, you know. I mean, 10 cats. I'm gonna have to round those up. It's gonna take a bit.
I'm
wait,
sure one of
we'll
those
wait.
cats can install it.
The one that's on the desk all the time probably does all the work for him anyway. So it's probably that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to have the Crazy Cat Guy Linux distro developed.
That'll be fun. Well, Colin can help you spin your own ISO for it, so it'll be great. Thomas, how would you rank Pop?
I haven't extensively used Pop OS, but with how much I have used it and how many good things I've heard about it, both from you guys and from actually Draugr OS users, I'd have to say it's a pretty high top shelf, like that drink that you can only, really justify buying when you're going to like a wedding or something like that, is like that high quality, because it works really, really well. Like people have said before, it's fairly user friendly. There have been issues that I've seen people having on other distributions that Pop OS just doesn't have for whatever reason. And the people behind Pop OS are phenomenal. They definitely know what they're doing. They write amazing code. If you need support, they will bend over backwards for you. And for a new Linux user who is coming into this, who doesn't have the community, that is essential. Because the first place they go, if they don't have access to the community, because they don't know where to go, is going to be Pop OS support, either by calling System76 or emailing them or something like that. So high top shelf.
Top shelf. Okay, got it. Colin.
Just imagine this cup is Pop OS.
Oh, look at that. Wow, he gave like an object lesson here. That was nice. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Mark.
Oh, I'm going to go with a brewer's pride, like that. So,
okay,
because System 76 is definitely making the OS to work with the hardware. I think that's great. Yeah, I like the cosmic theme and the space graphics and all that. I think that puts it at a something that is appealing to certain folks. And Ubuntu, after so many years, is you get the animal that's the code name, and that's about it. There's not a lot of fanciness there. So Pop OS is trying to do something different. It's good.
So you're saying more of a craft than a specialty?
Yeah.
A craft. Okay. All right. Cool. All right, Rick. How would you place Pop OS in your world?
Well, I think I'd like it as a craft type thing too.
Okay.
Because it's kind of a specialty type drink, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's good for new users and especially gamers with the NVIDIA driver automatic and all that kind of stuff. And it's also got what I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's got all the pieces to it put together well.
Excellent. So craft it is. Jinda.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with everybody else in the craft.
Okay. Well, it's not everybody, but that's
that's
a fair
so
share.
far.
All right. Steve.
I'm gonna go with Jeremy. It's Pop Shelf.
Pop Shelf. All right. Yeah, that was very funny when he said that.
Yeah.
Or
No,
wrote
very,
that.
very, to me, very, very top shelf. It's it just seems to work well, and they're doing some really good things. So it is nice to see.
Okay, that's great. I love it. Chickle.
Hi, let's hope this works. I think top shelf. I think
Top
Pop
shelf.
Plus is awesome.
Awesome. I love it. Donnie.
It's a top shelf for me too.
Top shelf. All right. Penguin, or whatever I call you. Revolution. Penguin Revo.
Penguin's just fine. I think that's what you guys always used to call me. But my experience with Papa West, even though I didn't do the testing, but I use it every day. It's top shelf, and mainly because I know with no matter what weird hardware I'm running, all I have to do is the graphics card, and I know it's going to work right out of the box without me tinkering with it too much.
That's awesome. All right, that's good reasoning. Dale.
Well, I definitely think it's top shelf, if not just for the ease of use with the NVIDIA cards, but for other aspects of it. I'm not a tiling person, but I did turn it on just to mess with it, and my age, I would have to have a cheat sheet pasted to the wall for me to remember all those keyboard combinations. So, but it's good for the people that like using that, and it's very well integrated into the desktop. So I was quite impressed. So yeah, it's top shelf.
Excellent. Thank you. Vince.
To me, Pop OS is like an icy cold cocktail on a really, really hot summer's day. I just want to grab it and just enjoy it, sip it, and savor it.
All right. That sounds like maybe a specialty or top shelf. Does it matter? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's a cocktail.
Okay.
Just enjoy it.
That's it. All right.
Have fun.
I like it. Scrapjaw. Oh.
I'm just here for the hang.
Okay.
I wasn't here last week. I didn't know what you guys were up to, but I'm here.
No worries.
Here for the beer.
As long as we don't run out, right? All right. Prophetic.
I would say top shelf, because in the field of like a lot of indie-based distros, Pop is a established company, and it's a great place to great place to send people to, knowing that it's not going to disappear, at least not anytime soon. So I would say top shelf.
All right. Awesome. And I'm actually going to say it's a craft beer. Craft distribution, because just to hear me out on this one, is I feel like it's specially crafted, like handcrafted, with like such.
That's true. Fine tuning.
Fine tuning and detail, and like a prized brew of Linux distribution. I feel like there's so much put into this, so much flavor, so many different things that are just kind of stuffed in there that I feel like it is a craft. It's very well done. It's such a beautiful package of a distribution, and I think it's something other distributions can aspire to for that immediate out-of-box user experience that I think that sets it apart from all other distributions. But that's a personal opinion. That's my
humor.
Yeah.
Jeremy says Papa's a distro of the people, dirt cheap vodka.
No, it's not a
Oh,
well.
it's better than that, my son. Better than that.
So
we call that type of vodka. We call that rock gut.
It's called It'll Do.
Yeah.
It's called moonshine, bud.
The gas station wine.
Yeah, it's the one that has like a paper label on it, and no, I really do think it's great. And I as a biased OpenSUSE user, I get a lot of enjoyment out of using Pop. So, and I'm going to put a vote in there for K-pop. I think that would be really cool if it was on a Plasma base. So I just want, since Jeremy's here and he's listening, K-pop would be pretty cool. On that, we're going to go on to the next week distribution. So normally we have you vote on it, but we do want to keep things kind of lined up with Linux user space. There's a lot of the crowd that listens to Linux user space does listen and participate with Linux Saloon, and it's even in the Biddle days it was very similar. And since Dan and Leo are regulars on here, usually when they can show up, we want to make it so we want to have for our next week's distribution, we're going to do MX Linux because they're going to release this Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday, or is it Monday? Eris, correct me. I can't remember what day it comes out. It's already been released to me because I'm a patron.
You mean the next distro episode?
Yes.
The next distro will be in 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Well, they said it's February.
It's not next
7th.
week, but the week after that.
Okay, so I think it's. I wrote down February 7th. Am I wrong?
They come out with an episode every other week, and they just
Okay.
came out with an episode this week.
All right. So then, should we push back MX Linux till next week then?
If
To
you
line it up
wish.
with their release. What are some thoughts there? Just, someone tell me what to do.
Peppermint would be good in between.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
All right. So peppermint before that. I don't know if we have any peppermint fans here though.
Oh yeah, we do.
I was
surprised me,
Steve.
prophetic.
That was a joke.
No, after my passion and love for Puppy, there was a sweet romance stage with Peppermint for a little bit.
Okay.
All
right,
right,
so
the
then-
team I think can use a nice, because it would be well rounded here, and we could talk about it in a minute, but yeah, that would be great.
All right. So I have to take better notes. So shame on me. I wrote down the wrong date. And so let's do peppermint then, since I think there's a lot of plus ones for peppermint. I see. Thank you, Vince. So let's do peppermint, and then come back next week with a how we experienced it. And if you do have bugs or difficulties, I would say reach out to Steve or somebody else who's involved in the community, and make sure we can get some bug reports filed and just kind of help the team out because it's their first release post Mark, and so this is kind of a big deal.
I think it's important to stress that this is like a rebuild of Peppermint because they're not using pretty much anything from the other version because they didn't know how to move everything over.
Right.
So this is really like a first release.
Right. Okay.
Peter.
That's a really good point to really check everyone's expectations.
Mhm.
So that's a really good point to highlight.
And so it is based on Debian 11.
Mhm.
If I'm remembering what I read correctly.
Yes, it's based on stable.
Are there any things that we need to look out for to, prepping for this?
Just that, don't keep in mind Peppermint 10. It's totally different.
Yeah.
And there are some changes, some mildly surprising changes. It's a bit different.
Are you saying Peppermint 10 is the new or
No, Peppermint, it's actually, if you go to the
Peppermint OS.
site, it's just Peppermint OS. So
Okay.
when you go to the download page, it's actually the very first one that everybody misses because we're now not doing numbers. We're kind of calling it Peppermint 11 now, but it will just be Peppermint because things will be rolling. And I guess since we're on the subject, and then I'll pass it on at the end, that tomorrow I'm doing on my stream a whole thing on Peppermint.
Oh, excellent.
So, I got some history and some insight because
Excellent.
someone's kind of apart things. So
I think
So
I
just,
think
just so I understand, Peppermint is now changing its release cycle from, I believe it was Ubuntu to a Debian stable, and they're rolling instead of doing stable releases. Is now.
we'll talk about that.
Okay.
I
Right,
think
so-
the reason why they have both versions of Peppermint is because they know that it's like Steve said, you're supposed to kind of forget about 10. It's not going to be it's not 11, 10 plus something. It's totally different. So they do give you those both options just in case you still want to try the old version.
So it's kind of like like a reboot of Star Trek. So you may not like how it tastes. Actually, that's a bad example because I don't like the reboot of Star Trek. All right, so there's some things to keep in mind that instead of using LXDE, they're using XFCE for the desktop environment. They also replaced the Ubiquity installer with Calamares, and they decided to use Nemo instead of Thunar as well. So that's just some things I've.
Well,
noted.
Nemo's been their file manager since 6.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't recall what it was before. So they're not providing web browser by default. Instead, you choose which browser you want to install on the welcome tool. That's an interesting change as well. Well, very cool. All right, so peppermint is. So for next week, I think, yep, got the thank you, Vince, for putting it in the chat. Much appreciated, and we look forward to that, and how your unique exploration goes. And also, I want to thank you, Jeremy, for being in the chat and trolling's not the right word, but poking a little bit at us, and I think that's fun. And so, thank you very much for being. And you did. We really appreciate everything you did on Pop OS. All right, so for move on, doing some real quick housekeeping. So I got a bunch of logos in. I want to thank everyone for sending in logos. I haven't sorted through them all. This week kind of got away from me. So I will be releasing on the Destination Linux Network Discourse Forum a method for you to vote. I'm going to narrow it down to a few, and a method for you to vote on the logo. So we're going to go with like kind of what the community likes the most, and hopefully we'll have we'll have the logo from there. So if you want to try and submit a last minute logo, that's cool. I'll still put it in there, but I will be looking at them within the next couple days. So like Monday. I don't plan on doing much tomorrow. So Monday I'll be looking at those. So I guess unofficially I extended it. You know, I'm okay with sending it within. I'm okay with late homework. Not a big deal. This week sort of got away from me, like most weeks do, but I will be working on that this week. So if you have any, then we can vote on it on the forum. All right. So what I'd like to do is muddle through the Linux news. As always, big thank you to Michael for This Week in Linux for help mixing up a great flight of topics. And I would first start with LibreOffice 7.3 was released. Now, who here uses local Office applications? Is that a big thing for anybody here? A little bit, Thomas. Mark does. Of course, I'd expect Rick to. Okay, so
When you mean local, mean on your system, not cloud-based?
Yeah, and I think Eris,
Yeah,
you put up his
that's
digital
what I
hand.
use, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a big fan of LibreOffice. I use it for a lot. Like, there's not a day I don't use LibreOffice. I think it's great. In fact, I decided to start tracking how many eggs that my chickens lay every day, and I have my oldest. I have a spreadsheet set up so you can put in like how many like green eggs, how many olive eggs, or white or brown or duck or turkey. We only have one turkey, so at the most you get one turkey egg. But anyway, so I'm teaching my son how to use spreadsheets now so he can keep track of how many eggs we produce, and we've got like really high number of eggs at this point for the year. So it's pretty amazing actually. Anyway, so there's some new features. They've a lot of improvements to make it easier for people to migrate from Microsoft Office to LibreOffice, as well as those who regularly swap documents between the two Office suites. I haven't really had any issues in a while. Has anyone else had any issues with the Office suite document movement in a while? For me, if anything's like highly formatted, I may have issues with that. Sometimes like with PowerPoint, but outside of that, I haven't had any issues. Lack of Visual Basic in Excel is a problem for me. But they have new features to handle change tracking in tables and text within documents. Large files also get performance boost thanks to upticks in the rendering speed, and a bunch of import and export filters have been added and honed. Now I know if anyone here does like data cloud type stuff, so if you were to have in the world of like doing like a design of experiments, like how something behaves or responds, like let's say you're building a refrigerator and you want to track the temperatures and so forth, you get like this data cloud. It shows a lot of data points, whatever. So something that Microsoft Excel does a really good job of is taking that cloud of data in and then turning it into a really nice report, so you can actually see how the appliance is performing. So I appreciate, from a data collection standpoint, if you want to do some data analysis with like comma separated values, something like Excel or LibreOffice works really well for that.
Nate, quickly on that.
Sure.
LibreOffice 7.3 Calc is not working for some distros.
Really?
Yeah, so when people went upgraded from 7.2 to 7.3, calc stopped working, but only for certain distros and only for certain factors, and it's still getting worked out where those factors are.
I'm still running 7.2, so I guess we'll find out. And I just did distribution update yesterday, so
yeah.
Now I'm just gonna throw this out. If people are having issues with that, you might want to just swap out LibreOffice from the standard repos for your distribution. Just install a snap or a Flatpak. That might actually fix the issue.
I wonder what the issue is with what's causing it to.
There's
to
a lot of
fail.
people looking at it right now.
Interesting.
That's actually one thing I always do whenever I install like a new distro. I always take out the version that's there, unless it's like a rolling release, and then I just install the Flatpak or LibreOffice.
Yeah, I haven't had issues. I think the only issue I've had with LibreOffice is there was a period of time where if I changed the font size, I would have to click off of LibreOffice and click back on it to be able to actually interact with it again. Don't know what caused that. It's just kind of a weird thing.
They also had this formatting one too, where it's like if you go too many bullet points in, it just tabs out like crazy. And it's been a bug for like 5+ years. I might just give it a spin now and see if it's still there. But that was kind of like my deal breaker because the main use case I had was for outlining things.
Okay.
And it was just like after a while, I just kind of like that meme of that monkey like shoving the laptop off the desk. It's like if I can't do an outline on this software, I'm not going to use it anymore. I just kind of bailed on LibreOffice after that.
So I've actually had a bug with LibreOffice for a while now. I have a script that relies on a program inside of LibreOffice. It essentially, I give it like a thing, like a name, and I point it to a text file. It puts the name into the text file where it finds a certain key, and then converts the text file to a PDF. It basically allows me to generate cover letters like that because I'm lazy and I don't write cover letters when I apply for jobs. But that program has been consistently throwing errors whenever I try to use it for whatever reason. I guess it just doesn't want to convert plain text files to PDF anymore. I don't know. But
is that a bug or is that something outside the use case of LibreOffice?
It's a bug because that specific program specifically has that feature to be able to convert a plain text file to a PDF. And it's a part of LibreOffice. I think it actually does use that.
So you're using it using a feature in a script.
Right. I'm just using one of its features.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's just a way to automate it.
Here's a suggestion for that. Have you tried just hitting the print button, hitting print to PDF?
You see, the problem with that is the idea is I want to be able to generate a lot of cover letters very quickly. Because if for some reason I lose my job one day, I don't want to have to go and write a brand new cover letter for every single job I apply for. I want to have a generic cover letter. I just give it the name of the company I'm applying for, and it just makes it for me. And all I have to do is up space, change name, up space, change name, done.
So what you're saying is you're going to be able to generate physical spam as quickly as possible.
Technically, yes, because I hate cover letters with a burning passion. But
that's fair.
It's just something to make my life easier. And doing that in a GUI legitimately takes a lot longer, especially because I don't know how this actually operates, but when you print to PDF, if I'm not mistaken, it has to go through cups. So it takes longer. And if your system's cups server is broken, you can't print to PDF.
It has to go through cups.
Yeah. So then if cups is broken for whatever reason, which I've had happen to me before, you don't want to do that. It's
Yeah,
much
cups
more.
breaks a lot.
I mean, for me these days, it's not bad. It's just I've had it break on me before. It's more reliable for me to just directly convert a TXT file to a PDF file. And since I'm always going to have LibreOffice installed, even if I barely use it, it's going to be there. Why not use it?
All right.
So.
Well, it is that time for last call. So I do want to, if anyone has anything to plug, I do want to plug that Destination Linux is streaming live tomorrow afternoon, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then also, Steve, tomorrow you are streaming at what time? Oh, you're muted. So he's not. This is actually like how his streams go.
My name's Nate. Central US, 8 a.m. Central US, and I will be doing. It's going to be all on Peppermint. I have it actually all planned out. Yeah, I got things going on. I might not do the Zoom tomorrow, but I'm going to go over a bit of the history. I'm going to steal some stuff. I'm going to be like Leo, but not as good as Leo. And I have a little insight from some of the developers, and I want to share about Peppermint, and then we'll go over a live kind of review on installing things. So
excellent.
That's the
I look
plan.
forward to that. I can usually catch like the first hour or so. Unless you're late, then it's like 45 minutes. So usually I can catch the first 45 minutes of your show.
Everything's set up so that's what worries me.
All right, and then Rick, you're going to be probably testing out Peppermint on Wednesday, right?
Yeah. Actually, I installed it on this machine once, and I installed in a VM on once, I think.
All right.
So I'll be installing it on the VM in my computer on the framework and see how it goes.
Excellent. And then Mark, you got I want you to plug your Linux user group that you have going on.
On Sundays at 3 to 6 Eastern, the Atlanta Linux Enthusiast at ale.org, ale.org. We have a standing meeting every Sunday where we help whoever needs help with Linux. Sometimes we get folks that are just installing Linux for the first time. Sometimes they're running into just some type of crazy problem with a Bluetooth keyboard or something. We try to help them out. So you're welcome to join us. The meetings are online via Jitsi. You can find us. I put it in the chat. It's ale.org. We're also on Meetup. And thank you.
Oh, check that out.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, handing that out to everybody. Feel to join your lug. And if anybody else had anything else they wanted to say, like something that's going on this week, I know Colin always has something going on. He's probably crashing something, I imagine. Maybe.
I think Dale had something. I think he's got a little bit of a show that he co-hosts.
Yes, I wanted to make a mention of the podcast I'm on, co-host of. It's Distro Hoppers Digest. Blogspot.com is the website. And Tony Hughes and Moss Bliss of the Mintcast. They created this a couple years ago, and they invited me. I think this will be my first year on the podcast, and we review distros.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on our schedules and that, we'll do at least one each, and tell you what problems we had. It's like 3 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks we use it, and just give you our issues and then give you some news and just some stuff that we're working on. The podcast is released every month. They pretty much cater it around my schedule now. Their previous was pretty much at their own life schedules, but because of my cross-country driving, they pretty much time everything for my time at home. So if you like to learn about distro hopping and how the things play together, you can check us out on your favorite podcasting app.
Distro Hoppers Digest.
I put the link in the Zoom chat for Yep.
And I put in the YouTube chat to pass it on to everybody else too. So,
Yeah, it's
excellent.
yeah, the
Thank you very
distro
much.
digest.blogspot.com and or I think I have it opened up here. Let me make sure I got the address. Yeah, distrohoppersdigest.blogspot.com.
All right, and then also Prophetic, he gave us the FOSDEM is also this weekend. So I got the link to that, the schedule in the chat as well. So if you want to check that out. So excellent. If anybody, anything else from anybody, if you have anything to plug, speak up. If not, Scrapjaw is going to play us off. I imagine, right? Is he going to? So I want to thank you all for joining. You can catch me at Linux Out Loud, or formerly Destination DLN Extend. That comes out every Wednesday. And I want to thank you all for being a part of the conversation, both in the YouTube meeting and the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as everyone watching the show after the broadcast. I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun, enjoy technology, because Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by, and be sure to tip your developers, and please always remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Hooroo the kangaroo.
Toodaloo and all that good stuff.